Welcome to the Gulfy Guy YouTube channel. Today's video is about 7 true horror stories which will disturb your today's night.
If you've ever felt someone watching you while walking alone at night, this story is for you. I was 15 when this happened. I lived in a quiet, upper-class neighborhood, the kind where nothing ever happens. My girlfriend lived 2 blocks away, and I walked to her house almost every night. That night was quiet. Too quiet. Halfway down the street, I heard a bush rustle behind me. I didn't stop, just walked faster. Then I heard it again, a twig snapping. This time, I turned around. Nothing. Just empty streets and tall bushes lining the sidewalks. I sped up. That's when I heard footsteps. Light, fast, matching my pace. I called my girlfriend while walking. She answered immediately. I told her something felt wrong. As I stepped onto her driveway, I saw her waving from the upstairs window. Then she froze and said, "Who's that guy behind you?" I turned around. A grown man was crouched, walking toward me, no more than 10 feet away. I screamed and ran. He grabbed me, locked his arm around my neck, then suddenly let go and ran into the darkness. This story is why you should never open your door at night, no matter how desperate someone sounds. It was a violent storm, thunder shaking the house. I was relaxing in my room when something slammed into my window. A man stood outside, soaked, his face distorted by rain. He was screaming for help. I cracked the window open. He yelled that he was hurt. I ran to get my dad. Before he could open the front door, the phone rang. It was our neighbor. I heard my dad say, "No, no way." He hung up and whispered, "Stay away from the door." Through the window, he saw the man crouched down, holding a large, sharp tool. Police were called. The man disappeared. Later, we found out he had stolen an axe from a nearby shed. The house was quiet. In that way, it only gets late at night, when everyone else is asleep and even the walls seem to be listening. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching cartoons with the volume turned up too loud. The colors on the screen were bright, cheerful, completely wrong for how the house felt. Then, I heard it. My mom calling my name. It came from the basement. At first, I didn't react. I thought maybe I imagined it. The TV was loud after all. But then, she said it again. Clearer this time. Calm. Familiar. I answered back, shouting over the TV. "What?" No response. That's when I muted the TV. The silence felt heavy, like something had just noticed me. I heard her again. Same voice, same tone, coming from downstairs. I walked to the top of the basement stairs. The light was off. The doorway below was swallowed by darkness. I called her name. Nothing answered. Halfway down the stairs, my skin started to crawl. The air felt colder, thicker, like it didn't want me there. I stopped and listened. That's when she called my name again. Louder, closer, right at the bottom of the stairs. It didn't sound angry. It didn't sound scared. It sounded patient. I flipped the basement light on. The room flooded with yellow light. Empty. No movement, no shadows, no sign anyone had been there at all. I stood there for a few seconds too long, listening for footsteps, for breathing, for anything. Then the light flickered. That was enough. I ran upstairs, crying, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My mom came rushing out of her room, confused, asking what was wrong. I told her someone was calling me from the basement. I told her it sounded exactly like her. Her face changed, not scared, but serious. She told me she hadn't called me. She'd been in a room the whole time. To prove it, she went down to the basement herself, turned on all the lights, checked every corner. Nothing. No one. That night, she left the basement lights on. I didn't sleep because I realized something that still bothers me to this day. Whatever called my name knew exactly how my mother sounded, and it waited until I was alone and listening.
This happened to my grandfather, and after this night, he never walked alone again. My grandpa lived on a small farm far from the city. No streetlights, no neighbors close enough to hear you scream, just long dirt paths and thick woods that swallowed sound as the sun went down. Every evening at sunset, he walked his dog along the same trail. The dog was small but alert, never barked without a reason. That night, the sky was turning orange when they passed a man coming the other way. The man wore a dark hood pulled low over his face. My grandpa nodded and said hello. The man didn't respond. As they passed, the dog stopped and growled, low and deep, like it didn't recognize what it was looking at. The leash went tight as the dog tried to turn back toward the man. My grandpa pulled the leash and kept walking. After a minute or two, the barking started again. The dog kept glancing over its shoulder, whining now, refusing to calm down. That's when my grandpa felt it, the uncomfortable pressure of being watched. He turned around. The man was gone. Or so he thought. A few steps later, he looked again. The hooded man was standing behind a tree off the trail, half his body hidden, his face still impossible to see, watching. My grandpa didn't wait this time. He picked up his pace, his hand slipping into his coat where he always carried pepper spray, just in case. The path felt longer than it ever had. Then he heard it. Leaves crunching. Slow. Careful. Too close. Before he could turn, a gloved hand clamped over his mouth and nose. The grip was strong, stronger than he expected. His breath was gone instantly. Panic exploded in his chest. He tried to scream. Nothing came out. The smell of damp fabric and dirt filled his nose as the man pressed closer, dragging him backwards. The dog went wild, biting, snapping, barking so violently the leash burned into my grandpa's hand. The man grunted in pain. That was the moment. My grandpa tore the pepper spray from his pocket and sprayed blindly, once, twice, again and again. The man screamed and stumbled back, coughing, swearing. My grandpa didn't look to see where he went. He ran. He ran until his lungs burned, until the farmhouse lights came into view, until he could slam the door behind him and lock it with shaking hands. They never found the man. No tracks. No reports. But from that day on, my grandpa never walked that trail again.
This is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard, so listen carefully. When I was 12 years old, my best friend and I used to ride our bikes around the neighborhood at night. There wasn't much to do where we lived, and boredom made us curious, reckless. At the edge of town, there was an abandoned house. Everyone knew about it. No one ever bought it. No one ever stayed inside for long. That night, as we rolled up the cracked driveway, my friend suddenly stopped pedaling. "Do you see that?" he asked. I looked up at the front window. There was a face staring back at us. Pale, still, pressed just enough against the glass to be unmistakably human. It didn't blink. It didn't move. We stood there longer than we should have, waiting for it to react, waiting for it to turn away. It never did. In the final hour before his parents were supposed to come home, the house felt wrong, too quiet. I was in the bathroom washing up when I heard a knock at the door. "Cody?" I called. I opened the door. No one was there. The hallway lights flickered faintly as I leaned out, scanning for him. That's when I heard it. A slow, deliberate creak. The door at the very end of the hallway was opening. Not suddenly, not all at once, slowly, painfully slowly. My stomach tightened. I shut off the bathroom light and stepped into the darkness, whispering Cody's name, expecting him to jump out laughing, expecting it to be a stupid prank. But when I reached the room, my breath caught in my throat. Cody was already there. He was sitting on the bed, tucked in the far corner, completely still. His eyes were locked onto mine. He hadn't moved. He hadn't blinked. I swallowed hard. "Cody? Who just opened that door?" He didn't answer right away. Then, in a calm, flat voice, he said, "Agnes." My heart dropped. I rushed forward, scooped Cody up, and carried him straight to the living room. I didn't turn around. I didn't look down the hallway again. I sat there, holding him, until his parents finally came home. I never told them what happened. But when they called me a few weeks later, asking if I could watch Cody again, I didn't answer. And I never went back. I've been into extreme sports for as long as I can remember. Mountain climbing, parasailing, scuba diving. But skiing was always my favorite. Every winter, I'd go upstate at least 10 times a season, sometimes with friends, sometimes completely alone. That year, my friend Q agreed to come with me on a backcountry skiing trip. No marked trails, no patrols, just miles of forest and untouched hills beyond the resort boundaries. It was a 3-hour drive, followed by slow, nerve-wracking off-roading through thick trees until the path disappeared completely. I parked my truck at the base of a wide, snowy clearing, not because it was ideal, but because it was as far as I could go without getting stuck. We unloaded everything: skis, packs, camping gear, and only after that did we start hiking up the hills to scout runs. The skiing was incredible. Deep powder, untouched lines. At one point, Q and I split up while skiing down a steeper hill. I assumed we'd meet at the bottom like always, but I didn't see him. I radioed him on the walkie-talkie. No response. I told myself he was still skiing down or out of range. That's when I ran into someone else. Another skier stood at the bottom of the hill, face hidden behind a ski mask. His voice was friendly, too friendly. He asked about the best hills, whether we were camping nearby. His skis were strapped to an orange backpack. I pointed toward the hill I'd just skied, and then vaguely toward our campsite. He said he and his wife were looking for a place to camp near other people. Then he asked if I could lead them there. Every instinct told me no, but I didn't listen. I radioed Q again, announcing over speaker that I was heading back to camp briefly. As I started walking, the walkie crackled with heavy static. Someone trying to talk, maybe, but the signal was broken. Whatever Q was saying never came through. The hike back felt longer before. The man walked just behind me, asking questions that slowly stopped feeling casual. When we finally reached the campsite, I turned to him and thanked him for coming along. Then I asked, "So, where's your wife?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. That's when I noticed it. The skis, the backpack, they weren't his. They were Q's. For a split second, I thought maybe this was some sick prank. But the voice didn't match, and the way he was moving toward me, fast now, killed that thought instantly. I panicked and dove into the tent, reaching blindly through my bag for the flare gun. Something yanked my leg. Pain exploded through me, a sharp electric jolt followed by a burning heat so intense I screamed. I kicked wildly and finally got my hand on the flare gun, shoved the tent flap open and aimed. He froze, hands up. That's when I saw the knife buried deep in my leg. I screamed at him to tell me where my friend was. "Bottom of the hill," he said quickly, "where I found you." I ordered him to stay put while I called 911. The second I looked down, he ran. Bleeding, shaking, alone in the freezing dark, I waited. Every sound in the woods felt like footsteps coming back for me. Minutes stretched into something unbearable. Then, finally, the sound of rotors. I fired the flare. A rescue helicopter found me. And then, Q. He was lying unconscious in the snow halfway down the hill, stabbed twice in the leg, robbed. He'd tried to warn me on the walkie-talkie, but the signal never made it through. We both survived. We're fine now. But every winter, when the snow falls and the woods go quiet, I think about how easy it would have been for no one to ever find us, and how close we came to disappearing out there forever.